President Vladimir Putin has won a landslide victory in the Russian presidential election. The outcome means the 71-year-old Putin is set to embark on another 6-year term in office as he cements his strong grip over the country. Reports claim Putin won more than 87% of the vote. Communist candidate Nikolai Kartanov finished second with just under 4%. Nationwide turnout was 74.22% at 1600 GMT when polls closed. In 2018, the turnout was 67.5%. In his victory speech, Putin said he will prioritise tasks associated to war in Ukraine.
In general, the initiative is fully on the side of the Russian army. In some directions, our guys are butchering the enemy. We are advancing every day. Gradually, very delicately, but every day. This is a bit more than active defense, but we all see this anyway.
Putin criticised the US political and judicial systems as he said the whole world is laughing at Washington. He also said he would work with whoever wins the US election, expressing no preference for any candidate. Putin, in his speech, warned the West that the presence of Western troops in Ukraine could push the world to the brink of World War III. However, the Russian leader said he is ready for talks on a French proposal for a ceasefire in Ukraine during the Olympic Games.
I do not know about the statement of France's president. We are ready to discuss any issues, but as always, within any situation, we will proceed from the interests of the Russian Federation and, of course, the situation at the front line.
Meanwhile, Western countries condemned the election. The United States said the vote was neither free nor fair. Germany called it a pseudo-election under an authoritarian ruler. The UK Foreign Secretary David Cameron criticised the illegal holding of elections on Ukrainian territory. The Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky accused Putin of leading a dictatorship in Russia, while adding that Russia's presidential election was an illegitimate imitation. Thousands of protesters demonstrated against Putin. The protests took place at polling stations both inside Russia and abroad. In one of these polling stations, Alexei Navalny's widow was also present. Yulia Navalnaya said that she wrote her late husband's name on the ballot paper. The Russian presidential election witnessed an absence of any real challenges, as major opposition figures are abroad, in jail or dead. Well, for more on this, we're joined by Dmitry Babich, joining us live from Moscow. He's a political analyst at the Voice of Russia. Dmitry, many thanks for your time this morning. An overwhelming victory for Vladimir Putin. No surprise, of course, but give us a sense of the feeling in Moscow right now.
Well, it was an important vote, despite what the Western media says, because it was a sort of a plebiscite on the war. People who strongly disapproved of Vladimir Putin's decision to aggravate the military action in Ukraine, which has been going on since 2014, they could vote for another candidate. They could vote, for example, for Vladislav Davankov, who openly said that he would support negotiations with Ukraine now, without conditions and probably at Russia's disadvantage. So basically, it was a plebiscite, it was a vote. Do you support the forceful conduct of the war, which President Putin is doing now, or do you support another solution? And it's very important that 87% of the voters supported what we would call the war effort in this situation. As for the fact that the win was known in advance, well, there are such situations. Could anyone say, for example, during the French election recently, that Marine Le Pen would beat Emmanuel Macron in the second round? No, it was a foregone conclusion that Macron would win. The same story was between Jacques Chirac and Jean-Marie Le Pen in 2002. So there are situations when you have a clear favorite at the election, and this was precisely the case now in Russia, aggravated by war.
Of course, we did see some protests in and around the country, and of course there's been widespread criticism from other countries about the election. Has this had any impact in Russia itself?
Well, I think the Western hostility towards Russia mobilized the voters. It mobilized the electorate for Putin. Basically, Putinists were encouraged by the statements from Western leaders that this election was illegal or wrong or whatever. There is a very good American expression: all politics is local. The main thing is not what the other countries think about you. The main thing is what your voters think about you. And the voters in Russia, for good or for bad, support Putin overwhelmingly. As for the protests, please note that most of them happened abroad. Inside Russia, there were no protests near the polling stations. I mean, I visited 10 polling stations yesterday in Moscow. Everything was quiet. As for the voting abroad, please note that Western countries, Western governments discouraged Russian citizens living abroad, living in Germany or in France. They discouraged them from going to vote. But still, there were long lines, long queues near the Russian embassies. Russians living abroad en masse came to vote. I'm absolutely sure that they voted for Putin, most of them, because if they were against Putin, they could just stay at home. That's what the Western governments told them to do. But still, they showed up in huge numbers. Why? Because they live in France, in Germany, in Britain, everywhere they hear a lot of anti-Russian propaganda, I'm sorry, a lot of insults against Putin, and that strengthened the protest feeling inside them. So out of protest against what is going on in the Western media, a lot of them went and voted at the Russian embassies in the countries where they live.
Yes, well, Putin has secured another 6-year term. Dmitry Babich, many thanks there for your insight live from Moscow.